Arizona, a state defined by its stark desert landscapes, vast sun-drenched deserts, towering saguaro cacti, and the rugged beauty of the Grand Canyon. Known for its heat, rich Native American history, and sprawling cities like Phoenix and Tucson, Arizona paints a picture of rugged independence and stunning natural wonders. Yet, beneath the sun-baked exterior, there lies an increasingly dire problem: a homelessness crisis that has become impossible to ignore. In cities like Phoenix, Tucson, and Flagstaff, homelessness has reached alarming levels, with thousands of individuals and families living in desperate conditions. You'll find people sleeping under overpasses, in parks, behind shopping centers, and along highway underpasses. Makeshift tents, tarps, and shopping carts have become permanent fixtures in many parts of the state, and every day, the number of people living without stable housing seems to grow. As of the most recent data, over 10,000 people experience homelessness in Arizona on any given night. The vast majority of them, more than 60%, are unsheltered. These people don't have the refuge of a shelter or the temporary protection of a roof. Instead, they sleep on sidewalks, in desert areas, and in the harsh environments of Arizona's urban spaces. The state's homelessness crisis is one of the fastest growing in the nation, and it doesn't show any signs of slowing down. To understand why Arizona is facing such a profound homelessness crisis, we need to dive into the various factors that have converged over the years, creating a perfect storm for the state's most vulnerable residents. The root causes are complex, but they can largely be traced back to three major issues: a severe shortage of affordable housing, a lack of access to mental health and addiction services, and systemic failures in providing support for low-income individuals. The housing crisis in Arizona is a major driving force behind the state's growing homeless population. The cost of housing in cities like Phoenix has soared in recent years, far outpacing wage growth. As of 2023, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Phoenix is over $1,400 a month, an amount that is out of reach for many low-income families, especially those making minimum wage or working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. In rural parts of the state, the situation is even worse. Arizona's population is growing rapidly, but the supply of affordable housing has failed to keep up. For many, this means the only option is living in overcrowded or substandard housing, or, in worst cases, having nowhere to go at all. The state's housing policies have done little to alleviate the crisis. Like many places across the country, Arizona is suffering from a shortage of both low-income housing and transitional housing options. Zoning laws, high land costs, and a lack of incentives for developers to build affordable units have all played a part in exacerbating the problem. There is no easy solution, but it's clear that without a drastic increase in the availability of affordable housing, the situation will only continue to worsen. Arizona's climate adds an additional layer of hardship for the homeless population. The state's brutal summer heat, with temperatures often soaring well over 100 degrees, makes it one of the most dangerous places in the country to be without shelter. The scorching sun can cause dehydration, heat stroke, and even death. Yet, in the winter months, the situation doesn't improve. Desert nights drop to near freezing temperatures, leaving unsheltered people vulnerable to hypothermia. The extreme conditions make it impossible for those living on the streets to find relief. For many of Arizona's homeless population, mental illness is both a cause and a consequence of homelessness. The state ranks poorly when it comes to access to mental health care, and the services that do exist are often overstretched, underfunded, and difficult to access. Studies have shown that people experiencing homelessness are significantly more likely to suffer from conditions such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, and schizophrenia. For many, mental illness is a barrier to employment, housing, and stability. Without proper treatment, mental health problems only worsen, further alienating people from the support systems they need to survive. Addiction is another key factor contributing to homelessness in Arizona. The state has seen a rise in substance abuse, particularly with methamphetamines and opioids. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated this problem as isolation, unemployment, and anxiety led to an increase in addiction and overdose deaths. For many of the homeless, drugs and alcohol are not just a form of escape. They are a means of coping with the trauma and pain of living on the streets. Yet addiction only serves to compound the cycle of homelessness, making it even harder for individuals to access services, get clean, and find stable housing. Arizona's criminal justice system also plays a role in the state's homelessness crisis. Many people experiencing homelessness are caught in a vicious cycle of incarceration. They're arrested for minor offenses such as panhandling, sleeping in public places, or trespassing, then released back onto the streets with no resources to help them get back on their feet. This cycle of arrest and release, without proper support services in place, often leaves people with no place to go and no options for rebuilding their lives. The state's approach to homelessness has often been punitive rather than compassionate, focusing on criminalizing poverty instead of addressing the root causes of homelessness. The state's major cities have also struggled to implement effective solutions to the crisis. Phoenix, the state's largest city, has experienced a rapid rise in homelessness. Local officials have made efforts to create more shelter beds, but they're often overwhelmed by the sheer number of people who need help. The waiting lists for shelters are long, and even when beds are available, they're often located in unsafe or overcrowded conditions. Many people, particularly those with mental health issues or addiction, refuse to enter shelters due to the lack of privacy, safety concerns, or past negative experiences. As a result, many people choose to stay on the streets rather than seek shelter. In recent years, cities like Phoenix have attempted to address the crisis by opening safe zones, designated areas where people can camp temporarily with access to basic services like water and sanitation. These efforts have been met with mixed results. While some individuals see them as a necessary step toward providing basic dignity to the homeless population, others argue that these zones are just another form of displacement, offering only temporary relief without addressing the underlying issues. The human toll of Arizona's homelessness crisis is staggering. Every day, families are torn apart, lives are lost, and people slip further into despair. Take, for example, the single mother in Phoenix who, after a domestic violence situation, found herself and her children sleeping in their car for months, parked in the parking lot of a local supermarket. Or the Iraq War veteran in Tucson, who suffers from severe PTSD and is now living on the streets because his disability benefits don't cover the cost of housing. These are real people with real stories, and their struggles are not just theirs. They belong to all of us. Solutions do exist, but they require bold action, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to change. Arizona must invest in affordable housing, not just in cities, but across the entire state. This means reforming zoning laws, providing incentives for affordable housing developers, and creating long-term plans to address the shortage of transitional housing. It means expanding mental health services, addiction treatment, and homelessness prevention programs. It means taking a public health approach, not a punitive one, to help those who are most in need. Arizona must also recognize that homelessness is not a personal failing, it is a societal problem. The people living on the streets are not invisible. They are our neighbors, our families, our fellow citizens. They deserve dignity, support, and the opportunity to rebuild their lives. It's time for Arizona to take action, not just for the people currently living on the streets, but for future generations who will inherit the legacy of this crisis. Homelessness is not an unsolvable problem, but it will require all of us, local governments, state officials, businesses, and communities, to come together and work toward a solution. The tents are still there. The shelters are still full. The streets are still crowded with people who are simply trying to survive. But with the right investments, the right policies, and the right compassion, Arizona can turn the tide. Because no one should have to live in a car, no child should have to sleep under a bridge, no veteran should be left to die on the streets. This is the crisis in Arizona. It is urgent, it is human, and it is solvable if we choose to face it together.